Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for choosing this special half-hour edition of Across the Fence. I'm Will Michael in this afternoon for Fran Stoddard. On the heels of Vermont turkey, it's time to turn our attention to the Vermont Christmas tree. Latest figures from the state show there are more than 70 Christmas tree farms in Vermont with about 2,000 acres in production. But those 2,000 acres produce a value of close to $3 million. Tree farms not only produce fresh trees, they're also stewards of the land. And when it comes to the best Christmas trees, Vermonters aren't the only ones who think our trees are number one. Keith Silva explains.
The tree I was looking at is a nice looking tree.
Ann Lynn and Brian King have come a long way to cut their Christmas tree. Where are you from, Brian?
Jarrettsville, Maryland.
What are you doing here from Jarrettsville, Maryland?
These are the best Christmas trees we've ever had. Basically, they'll last 6-7 weeks if you keep water in the bucket. It's a lot of fun to come up and cut them.
What are the Christmas trees like in Maryland?
The cut your own places in Maryland will have 4 or 5 different varieties of tree. Problem is, all the ones we've cut down there, within 2 weeks, they're dropping a lot of their needles. It's all part of the Christmas experience. It's a chance to be outdoors. For us, it's a Christmas feature. We've either had a live tree or a tree that we cut all our lives.
We'll check back in with the Kings in a few minutes. Pete, what kind of trees do we have here?
We have balsams.
Oh, just all balsams?
There's a few cananes, but the majority of them are balsams.
And how many? Pete Purinton and his family began planting Christmas trees here in Huntington in 1990. 16,000 trees dot these 14.5 acres. And according to Purinton, each one has a look and a personality all its own.
Trees are like people. Some people are shorter, and some of them are a little wider, and some people are taller and narrower. And trees are the same way. So you take what the tree is offering and work with it.
As for that perfect Christmas tree, Purinton believes beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
That's your choice. It's just like anything else. My perfect tree is not your perfect tree. It's your taste is what will give you that fuzzy feeling. This is my tree. And it may not work for me. The magical feeling of this is my tree. You want a deep green or even a bluish color, depending on the species. Trees, again, like people, they take characteristics of their parents. Some people are bluer, some people are greener. It's just you want a deep green color.
To cut a Christmas tree at Purinton's costs $45 for any size tree. And like all choose and cut Christmas tree operations, every tree comes with a guarantee.
It is fresh. You cut it. That is truly a fresh cut, not a fresh cut from a retail lot where they take a little sliver off. That's fresh cut. This is truly fresh cut when you harvest it yourself. You understand what I'm saying?
For about 50 weekends out of the year, a Christmas tree farm is a fairly quiet place. As for those other 2 weekends, not so much.
It's the first and second weekend of December is usually the 2 busiest weekends. Busy would be a weekend, 600 trees. It's a lot of people going through, and the other busy weekend might be 500 or 450, something like that, but better than half your trees are sold on those 4 days.
Choosing and cutting a Christmas tree is a tradition for some families. And as the grower, Purinton plays an important role.
I'm getting to the age where I just talk to people. I don't really do the physical work of it anymore, but I'm out there joking with people because I think that's part of the reason we were successful is because people maybe have gotten used to seeing us every year, and now the next generation's coming back.
So you're part of the family. You're part of somebody. That's going to be pretty special.
Exactly. I'm a part of everybody's Christmas. I'm supplying them with something that they're happy with, that does the job, and it meets their expectations, and it feels good here, feels good for my children too.
Christmas tree farms are a part of Vermont's working landscape, a unique aspect of what makes Vermont, Vermont.
I had one person when I first started planting trees in this field driving by who was a neighbor. He says, "That's a nice field to be putting Christmas trees in." I says, "You know, I could probably put 16 driveways in if you'd rather." That's not going to happen. The Christmas trees is more important than the houses.
As for the Kings, they've found their Christmas tree. And in spite of a foot of snow on the ground and a 5-hour car ride before they can get their tree home, it's all worth it.
The difficulty of walking through or having to knock the snow off the tree is more than offset by the beauty and basically the fun of having snow on the ground. Really, it's a great start to Christmas.
When it comes to Christmas traditions, choosing and cutting a Christmas tree is an experience that's sure to be a cut above. In Huntington, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
One other note on a connection between Christmas trees in Vermont. It was in December of 1923 that then President Calvin Coolidge lit the first ever national Christmas tree on the National Mall in Washington. The tree was a 48-foot balsam fir from Middlebury. There are a number of ways to learn about animals and Vermont's agricultural heritage. First and foremost is the hands-on education and experiential learning offered in the UVM Extension 4-H program. When it comes to combining animal science education with a county-wide business, then you need to learn about the unique experiences and a very unique teacher at the Missisquoi Valley Union High School. Here's Rebecca Gollin from Swanton.
Feed them, and then after they have finished their grain, we'll turn them out, then you can clean the stalls.
Before I took this class, if you would have asked me, or it made me think of a cow, I would have just thought of a black and white cow, and but now I've learned about, I knew there were other kinds, but now I've learned about different ones.
Isaiah Luton is in his first year of animal science at Missisquoi Valley Union High School. While some schools in Vermont offer agricultural training as part of a vocational program, here at MVU, it's a regular class. But this class is anything but a regular classroom experience.
Oh, their responsibilities to keep track of their animal growth, to keep track, they do temperature checks. If their animal has fever, they have to determine what they're going to give it for vaccination. They do that themselves. They do the injections.
My first year of animal science, I had goats, and we had a milking goat named Misty, and my responsibility was to milk her, make sure her stall was clean, grained, and had water and everything like that. And then my second year, it was goats and the swan.
The students work with a specific animal as their project and are responsible for part or all of the animal's care. That might be one of the 2 steers and several hogs they raise for meat each year. For those interested in other animals, their teacher, Jim Messier, does his best to find them in the community.
Yeah, maybe it's because I've been around for a while, but I kind of know a whole bunch of people. And quite often if I want something and I call somebody up, could you do this? Most of the time, somebody will. Find this picture. Oh, yeah.
Messier doesn't just know a bunch of people. In this small community, he's taught most of them.
Tell me a little bit about your teacher. He's been doing this for a while.
Yeah, Mr. Macy's been here a long time. He was actually my boss at the farm. Mr. Macy was his mechanics teacher when he was in high school.
Starting in Highgate and then moving to MVU when it opened in 1970, Messier has been teaching for over 50 years. Things have changed a bit since he started.
The students that we receive have changed a bit. When I first started, they were almost all farm kids, and now the majority of the students are non-farm kids.
Messier has been at it for so long, they even named the building after him.
I can't help but notice that we are in the James Messier Agricultural Building.
Yeah, that's kind of a joke. I told Paul Gregoire, the director of Buildings and Grounds, I don't know if that's some kind of an omen or not, but that usually happens after somebody dies.
With the humble attitude of a farmer and a natural gift for teaching, Messier's influence on his students is clear.
He doesn't even have to be teaching you. He can just be doing something and like he just naturally explains everything he's doing, you know what I mean?
He is remarkable. He has worked in every area of our agriculture program, whether it be in the mechanics program, whether it be in natural resources or logging, and now, of course, in animal science.
Messier taught mechanics in the school's agricultural program for 45 years, occasionally teaching a veterinary medicine or animal nutrition class. Several years ago, he switched gears and took over the animal science class. For some students, taking the class can be life-changing.
I was quite a troublemaker before I landed in the program, so it was just real hard for me to focus, and I actually had a one-on-one, and so I would come out here during my class. Before I was even in the program, I would come out, sit on a bag of shavings and put my work on another bag of shavings and sit here with my one-on-one and do my work or read to the cows or something like that.
Journey Luton started taking the class when she was in 10th grade and was paired with a dairy cow as her first project.
How much?
$6.17. I just fell in love with her, so last January I got a job at a dairy farm in East Franklin, and I've been there ever since, and that's where my Gemma comes from, my Holstein.
She enjoys working with dairy cows so much that she's planning to attend Vermont Tech next year for a program in herd management.
I'll be there for 2 years for their dairy program, and then my current bosses want me to return full-time and be their herd manager and part-time cow breeder.
Along with the experience of working with the animals, the students also run a business in the class, using their school mascot, the Thunderbird, as a brand name. They sell their eggs, beef, and pork to the community.
All of our pork and beef that are sold has the Thunderbird designation on it. We have our animals slaughtered at the slaughterhouse in Ferrisburg because it's USDA inspected.
Luton is in charge of the meat sales, and classmate Trinity Chevier heads the egg sales.
So we collect the eggs every morning, and Mr. Macy's wife collects them at night, and we wash them and we grade them and we sell them to the community and people at school, and that helps go towards like equipment that we need in the barn and field trips.
The lunch program, the Abbey, is a big sponsor. They buy a lot of our ground beef for their stuff for lunch, so that's really cool that we can have lunch come from the barn over here, you know, that's really cool to me.
Food service director Tina Bushy buys as much as she can from the class.
We do. We use local as much as possible. That's our #1 goal. So we do get the local beef from the ag department here at MVU. We make homemade meatballs that we serve daily on the deli bar. And we do goulash, we do taco meat for nacho meals every day.
The money from meat and egg sales also pays for sweatshirts for the class, as well as their membership dues for Future Farmers of America. Each student becomes a member. For Messier, whether the students go on to a career in agriculture or not, he knows they leave his class with a full appreciation of what farmers do.
What keeps you coming back?
Well, I enjoy working with the students. I haven't run out of ideas.
Those ideas include a recently installed web camera that allows people from all over the world to tune in to the barn. Messier also hopes to expand the program to include fiber sheep to offer a new option for students.
It's a vocational program, but it's an avocational program.
It's a high school class that's trained generations of Vermont farmers.
I definitely like to run a farm. That's my dream. I just want to be at the farm all day long, like sun up to sundown with 1 day off. That's my dream.
In Swanton, I'm Rebecca Gollin with Across the Fence.
Our thanks and congratulations not only to MVU but to their outstanding teacher, Jim Messier. The first Thanksgiving in this country took place in 1621. It would take another 300 years for homesteading in the country to reach its zenith around 1920. Well, fast forward nearly another 100 years. In 2018, Keith Silva found modern-day pioneers in Bristol.
At Wild Roots Farm, everything has a use and every one has a purpose.
For me, it's being able to utilize the land and its resources to support our family. And that's the only way I can really describe it.
John and Kathy Turner and their 2 sons live on 10.5 acres in Bristol. A portion of the food they raise is sold to restaurants. But that's not their main objective. The Turners are homesteaders. For many, homesteading conjures images of Little House on the Prairie, covered wagons, log cabins, and hardscrabble farming. Nostalgia for what's thought of as simpler times. For the Turners, this nostalgic viewpoint only goes as far as taking the lessons learned in the past and combining them with a vision for the future.
This is nothing new. This is no new technology that we're utilizing here. Maybe an old, 1980s compact tractor is the most of it, but everything else is for the most part done by hand and sweat equity. We live in a very small house. It's 700 square feet, and we have 2 kids and 2 animals that live in the house with us. And so it really helps you understand what is an actual need versus a want within your daily life. And being able to provide food for my family and food for my community, to be able to take that crop and bring it to a restaurant, it's a great feeling. It really is. And it's not just being hippies. It's not just being, back to the landers or being gruff, grizzly men or women for that matter, but it's really understanding, resilience.
I like being part of it. And by it, I mean all of it. We're not just making food, but we're creating an environment. And we're feeding the soil, and we're feeding the animals that come here. I like being part of the greater it. And I like that it matters. And I like that I can feel it in my bones that what we're doing matters and keeps us going.
Resiliency and self-sufficiency are 2 reasons for taking on the challenges for homesteading. For John, those qualities are tied to the pride he takes in the work and knowing where his food comes from.
I know what's going into my soil. I know the amount of care and kind of passion that I have for the food system in and of itself. And it just feels different. I think about my life before I got into agriculture, before I got into gardening or homesteading, and it was a lot different. And this has been a way for me to really understand who I am as an individual and how I can actually contribute to society. Anytime we have the opportunity to get together with our veteran friends, we can smoke and joke, as they call it, and just kind of tell stories and, see where each other's at and check in on each other, because that's what
Across the Fence first met John when he was starting the Vermont chapter of the Farmer Veteran Coalition, a nationwide organization helping servicemen and women find work in agriculture. After his service in the Marines, Turner started gardening, and at that moment, his life changed.
In 2009, we had our first garden, and it was a 10-foot by 15-foot plot. I had never touched the soil from an agricultural perspective prior to that moment. And I was 25 years old, 24 or 25 at the time. And when I put my feet into the soil, just something changed. It was instant, and I remember the day very vividly. And ever since then, I was just inspired to understand food and soil and to kind of get my life more centered around sustainability, and it just kind of happened that way. I served on 3 deployments with the Marines. I've seen some pretty harsh conditions, and I've noticed patterns in myself and in humanity that I can feel pretty confident in stating that those patterns exist because of a lack of connection to self or the landscape. So much of being in the service, being in combat, is destructive, and to be able to come home and to nurture something, to tend to something, has a profound impact. It's something that I can honestly state that had I not made a reconnection with the natural world, I probably wouldn't be here.
Turner's agricultural knowledge is mostly self-taught, which fits with his personal code of self-sufficiency. But this belief is not at the exclusion of others.
I think it's the true meaning of sustainability and self-reliance, you know. But really, the other part of that too is empowerment. That's something I do believe that the homesteading movement, the Back to the Lander movement, is kind of bringing forth, is this greater sense of community. You're understanding what you can provide and what the other person can provide that you can't.
For the Turners, homesteading isn't about leaving the world behind. In addition to their restaurant sales, they also have off-farm income that helps get necessities the farm can't provide. The Turners see homesteading as a foundation for building community and contributing to society. They host workshops on various aspects of homesteading and small-scale farming. And John continues to work with veterans, which is how he met Anthony Hamilton.
I've been in Vermont for about a year and a half, and I moved here to participate in the farmer training program at the University of Vermont to learn about organic farming and farming on a small scale in a sustainable way.
Hamilton served in the Army for 4 years, including a tour in Iraq. So when John came to speak about veterans and agriculture to Hamilton's UVM farmer training class, Hamilton knew he was meeting someone he could relate to and someone who would understand him.
As I listened to him talk, I was just like, yeah, that's what I'm here to do too. Like that's awesome. We definitely need to collaborate. So after he finished giving his presentation, I introduced myself. It's been great to have somebody else with a similar goal so close by that we can collaborate with and work towards that goal of helping other vets realize their ambitions of homesteading or starting a small farm.
Thanks to Turner's encouragement and UVM's farmer training program, Hamilton rented land in Heinsberg and established Headwaters Farm. He doesn't think of himself as a pioneer, but Hamilton has tapped into the pioneer spirit of hard work and determination.
I started the vegetable production in what was previously a hay field, so I'm not clearing forest or anything like that, but it's definitely a bit of work in establishing it though. There's definitely that feel of breaking into new ground and making something where there wasn't something before.
The excess vegetables he grows, as well as the extra eggs he collects from his flocks of ducks and geese, he sells at the Richmond Farmers Market. Like Turner, Hamilton sees homesteading as a useful way of life.
So I think a lot of people see homesteading as a way to at least limit their impact and hopefully improve a small area. And rather than continue to contribute to things that are causing climate change or other food inequality issues, try to be, part of the push towards a change in the way food is produced. I think it's easy to kind of get lost in the competition of, having a good job and driving a nice car and living in the right town or the right neighborhood, and kind of within that losing a sense that what you're doing is meaningful. Whereas when the goal is feeding yourself or feeding your family, it's one that you can consistently be motivated towards and feel good about every time you accomplish it. Yeah, there's obviously something to be said for enjoying your work.
Those are going to go in this.
Turner says Hamilton's experience is similar to other would-be homesteaders he's worked with.
We have people who live in the city who come out from mushroom workshops, and they might go home and keep like a little bucket of compost and coffee grinds to grow some oyster mushrooms in. And for me, that's them taking the initiative to improve the quality of their life, because that's what farming does do. It's what homesteading does do. And if you don't have the space, if you don't have the 10 acres, maybe you have a pot or a window planter, and that's enough to keep you sane,
The Turners love the lifestyle they've chosen. As for others, all the Turners ask is to try. Is it for everyone, Kathy?
Yeah, I think so. I think that anybody with time and with some patience and understanding, I think it can be for everybody. I think it should be for everybody. I think it's a great way to wake up in the morning, and it's a great way to go to bed. feel like I'm missing out on the world or what's going on around me. I feel like I'm getting more from the world by being part of this system than my previous life of waking up in an apartment and driving to work and coming back and ending my day that way. So I don't feel like I have a huge sacrifice, and I don't feel like it's a huge ask for somebody to try.
I like the idea of almost like being married to the land, you know, and to be able to go around and you see how different plants and trees interact based off, you know, climatic changes and weather patterns and all these things. And you see how the pastures improve based off of the chickens. And then you start thinking about that whole system and how it's relative to your livelihood. And for me, that's it. You know, that's the homestead. It's figuring out what's available and what we can apply to help us live.
Living life with a purpose. That's the goal. The use of Wild Roots Farm. In Bristol, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
And that's our program for today. We know you have choices, so thanks for choosing us. I'm Will Michael, inviting you to join us back here each weekday afternoon for another visit Across the Fence.